السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. Alhamdulillah, welcome back to our Ramadan series, Living with Prophet Yusuf. Inshallah ta'ala, we're going to continue where we left off yesterday, bi'idhnillah. So we stopped at lesson number 29, which was jealousy is a sign of love. That when you are jealous of someone, then that is a sign that you love them. All right. And this was taken from this part of the story of Prophet Yusuf when the husband caught when Yusuf ran to the door and the wife of the Aziz was behind him, and she found her husband. As soon as they opened the door, the husband is standing there, and then the wife says, "And what is the reward, or what is the consequence of someone who desires evil for your family, except that you put him in prison or you punish him with a painful punishment?" And we talked about the fact that the husband, the Aziz of Egypt, he didn't show that he had any jealousy or any, over protectiveness of his wife. And as I said, some of the scholars say that the reason that he didn't react or overreact the way that a man should normally respond when he finds his wife in a room alone with another man is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intervened in that moment. As Allah says in the Quran, وَعَلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ يَحُولُ بَيْنَ الْمَرْءِ وَقَلْبِ. And know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes in between a man and his heart. That Allah comes in between a man and his heart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala essentially intervened in that moment. And the husband did not express the normal overprotectiveness that a husband would usually express if he found a man in the room with his wife. And that was to protect Yusuf from him. All right? And Imam al-Qarahi, he used this ayah also as a proof that the husband was lacking in what is called ghira, lacking in overprotectiveness, jealousy, over his wife. And we're going to point to another portion in the story that shows that he was lacking in ghira. He was, in fact, lacking in overprotectiveness or jealousy for his wife. I'm going to show you another scene in this story that points to that. All right, that points to that. All right, and as I said before, in our society, we live in a society where men, a man is viewed, is viewed as somehow secure within himself, that he doesn't show overprotectiveness or jealousy for his wife. And Islamically, this is considered honorable for a man to be overprotective of his wife. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala described the Muslim man in the Quran, الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ, that men are the protectors and maintainers of their women. All right? Men are the protectors and maintainers of the women. This is the way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is the way that Islam describes the relationship between the husband and the wife. That the husband has a sense of ghira, as a sense of jealousy and a sense of overprotectiveness over his wife. And we discussed the hadith yesterday where the Prophet ﷺ said to the companions that if you find a man alone in a room with your wife, then you should have 4 witnesses before you accuse him of adultery. And Sa'id ibn Mu'adh, he said, "O Messenger of Allah, are you telling me that I have to have, 4 witnesses, before I can take action against a man that I find alone in a room with my wife?" He said, "Wallahi, I swear by the one who sent you with the truth, if I find a man alone at home with my wife, I walk into my house and I find a man alone in the house with my wife, I'm going to separate his head from his body." He said, "And let Allah do with me after that what he wills." And the Prophet ﷺ asked the Sahaba, he said, "Ata'jabuna min ghirati Sa'd?" Are you all amazed at the jealousy of Sa'd? He said, I swear by Allah, I am even more jealous than Sa'd is. He said, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is even more jealous than I am. Meaning Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very overprotective of the things that He made haram. Meaning when Allah makes something haram, Allah makes it haram because He doesn't want you to go near it. He doesn't want you to touch it. All right. Likewise, there's another example, many examples of ghira, the overprotectiveness of the men, jealousy of the men, showing you that this quality is not, we come into Islam with this pre-Islamic mentality of, male bravado, and this pre-Islamic, mentality of, what it means to be a man and what it means to be secure as a man. And Islamic standards are a lot different. And we can't use what we learned from prior to Islam and use it now in Islam as the standard. It's not the standard. There was a situation regarding Asma bint Abi Bakr, Aisha's half-sister. Her name was Asma. And she was married to the Prophet ﷺ's cousins, whose name was Az-Zubayr ibn Awam. And Asma said one day she was coming from the garden that belonged to Zubair and her, coming from the garden carrying, fruits and vegetables on her head, walking home. She said, and the Prophet ﷺ noticed her walking, carrying this heavy, basket with fruits and vegetables on her head. And the Prophet ﷺ was standing with some of his companions. So he called Asma over and he told the camel to kneel down, and he told Asma, get on the camel and I'll walk you to the house. Now, mind you, what was the relationship between Asma and the Prophet ﷺ? Other than the fact that he was the messenger of Allah, he was the leader of the community, they had a more intimate relationship. What was the relationship between Asma and the Prophet ﷺ? What was their relationship? Was he just like some complete strange man? What was the relationship between the Prophet ﷺ and Asma, the daughter of Abu Bakr? That was her brother-in-law. Right, exactly. That was her brother-in-law. He was married to her sister, Aisha. So he wasn't like some complete stranger, right? He wasn't like some complete stranger. But when the Prophet ﷺ told the camel to kneel and told Asma, go ahead and get on the camel and I'll walk the camel back to the house, Asma, what did she say in that moment? She said, تَذَكَّرْتُ غِيرَةَ الزُّبَيْرِ فَامْتَنَعْتُ. She said, in that moment, I remembered the jealousy of Zubair, of my husband. And so therefore, رَفَضْتُ, I told the Prophet, no, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. It wasn't the fact that she was uncomfortable with taking a ride from the Prophet ﷺ, but she remembered the jealousy of her husband in that moment. That she remembered how her husband would feel in that moment. All right. And this is for women. If you're out and about, and sometimes you get into a casual conversation with a male or someone here or there at the grocery store, at this store, at that store. Remember that if your husband was standing right there, how would he feel about that? Because sometimes it's easy to lose focus. You're not really thinking about it. You're not really thinking, in that moment. But to think about your spouse. And the same thing goes for men. Sometimes we communicating casually with a woman and we're thinking that it's nothing of it. But what if your wife was standing right there? Would she be okay with that? No. All right. So we move on to the next ayat where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وقال نسوة في المدينة امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسه فقد شغفها حبا إنا لنراها في ضلال مبين. We move on to the next ayah where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says وقال نسوة في المدينة, and the women in Medina the women in the city in Egypt now started talking. The women started talking. يعني شاع أمر يوسف وامرأة العزيز في المدينة. That the news, all right, we know in small towns how quick news travels. So she tries to seduce Yusuf behind closed doors. There was a witness there. Yusuf runs to the door, opens the door. She snatches his shirt from the back, tears his shirt from the back. The husband is there at the door. And she says, so what is the consequence of someone who, desires evil for your wife? except that he be put in prison, or for him it's a painful punishment. And then Yusuf said, قَالَ هِيَ رَاوَدَتْنِي عَنْ نَفْسِي, that she desired me. I didn't do anything wrong. She was the one that was trying to, press me. She was pushing up on me. وَشَهِدَ شَاهِدٌ مِّنْ أَهْلِهَا, and then there was a witness. And then they decided that if his shirt is ripped from the front, then she's telling the truth and he's a liar. If the shirt is ripped from the back, then he is telling the truth and she's a liar. They looked at the shirt, saw that the shirt was torn from the back. The husband says to Yusuf, "A'rid an hada," turn away from this, Yusuf. Don't mention anything about this to anybody else. Leave it alone. He turns to his wife and it says, "Istaghfiri li dhanbik." You need to ask forgiveness for your sins, for indeed you were wrong. Once this happens, now of course, we know news travels fast. Bad news travels fast. Bad news travels fast. And lo and behold, it now starts to trickle out into the community. وَقَالَ نِسْوَةٌ فِي الْمَدِينَةِ امْرَأَةُ الْعَزِيزُ تُرَاوِدُ فَتَاهَا عَنْ نَفْسِهِ قَدْ شَغَفَهَا حُبًّا إِنَّا لَنَرَاهَا فِي ضَلَالٍ مُبِينٍ. And the women in the city started talking. All right? Bad news travels fast. Women in the city started talking. Not just any woman, not just any women. These are not just the lowlives. Mind you, we're talking about the wife of the second most powerful man in Egypt. The wife of the second most powerful man in Egypt. So we're not talking about the lower tiers of society. We're talking about the upper echelons of Egyptian society. They have reputation to uphold. They have honor and dignity, class. They have all of those things that they have to protect and maintain. So they can't have people out there talking about something that went on in the home. And this is why the husband told Yusuf, "A'rid an hada," turn away from this, Yusuf. Don't mention this to anybody. Because God forbid, he has to go out into society, has to go out into the community, and he can't have that coming back to him. However, news of the information leaked. News leaked. Obviously, Shaitan is definitely behind that again. Obviously, as one of our points, one of our lessons is that the origin of every evil is none other than Shaitan. The foundation of every evil is none other than Shaitan. Obviously, Shaitan definitely has something to do with the spread of negative information. So the women started talking. These were the women from the upper tiers of society. Some scholars of Tafsir said this was the wife of the king of Egypt, right? The wife of the king of Egypt, the wife of the bread shop owner, the wife of the governor, the wife of the guy that owns and runs the prison. The women from the upper tiers of society. Because if the the lower tiers of society start talking, she's not worried about that. That doesn't hurt her reputation. But when people on her level, when people on her same socioeconomic level starts to talk, now it's bothersome. Now it's troublesome. Right? There were governors all over Egypt. The Aziz was the treasurer responsible for the finances of Egypt. All right, and then there's governors over certain villages, over certain cities. I mean, Egypt is a huge place, even back then. You understand? So he wasn't just one governor. There were, even in Medina during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, even during the time of Umar when he was the Khalifa, there were many governors over different places. All right, so these women started talking. What are they saying? قال نسوة في المدينة امرأة العزيز تراود فتاها عن نفسي. That they're talking that the wife of the Aziz, the wife of the Aziz, and notice they didn't mention her name. They didn't say Zuleikha. They said the wife of the Aziz. Why? Because they're kind of criticizing her. They're finding fault with her. They're condemning her because you're the wife of the Aziz. And you're desiring your slave, turawidu fataha an nafsi. Like you're desiring your slave, your servant that works in the home with you, that you command to come and go as, who's there to serve you, and you're desiring him. These women are kind of now, but pay attention, because this criticism is not a criticism of what she did. Pay attention. This is another betrayal, another treachery. a makr, right? This is a plot, another scheme, right? As the husband, the Aziz, he said, indicate the kunna azim, the plotting of the women is serious. This is another plot. They weren't just criticizing her because they felt like her desiring her slave or her servant was beneath her. They were criticizing her because they wanted to get to see Yusuf themselves. They wanted to see Yusuf. They wanted to see Yusuf themselves. And that brings us to lesson number 13. Lesson number 13. As Imam As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala mentions in his tafsir, Imam As-Sa'di, he said, وكان هذا القول منهن مكرا ليس المقصود به مجرد اللوم والقدح فيها وإنما أن يتصلن بهذا الكلام إلى رؤيته. Imam As-Sa'di rahimahullah ta'ala in his tafsir, he said the women criticizing Zulaykha was not just mujarrad alone. They were not just criticizing her because they felt like what she did was beneath someone of her status. They were criticizing her because they knew by criticizing her or talking about her that it would tap into that ego and they would get an opportunity to see Yusuf themselves. So that brings us to lesson number 30. Lesson number 30. Sometimes people criticize you so you can show your hand. Sometimes people criticize you so you can show your hand. Sometimes people criticize you not because they want to find fault with you, but because they want you to show your hand. They're playing on your ego. They're playing on your ego. Right? You know how, for example, you know how you might buy something, right? Name brand thing, and you come around someone and they be like, let me see that. That's Gucci. That's not real Gucci. You walking around with fake Gucci. They know that it's not fake, but they want to tap into your ego, right? Oh, he walking around with fake Gucci on. You got on some Fugazi stuff, blah, blah, blah. And they know the type of person that you are, that you don't do fake stuff. They know what type of person you are. They've been around you long enough. They know that you don't wear fake stuff, but they playing on your ego. So then what do you do? What do you do when a person says, oh, that's Fugazi, that ain't real, oh, you walking around with fake stuff on? What do you go and do? You say, oh, let me go show you the receipt. Or let me go show you because I got to prove to you, right? Sometimes people criticize you because they want you to show your hand. They criticize you not because they're finding fault with you. They're criticizing you, right? You go show them your tags, go show them your receipts. And in that moment, they've played on your ego. They got you to show your hand. And when a person can get you to show your hand, that means that what? You are predictable. When a person can get you to show your hand, that means that you are predictable. All I got to do is criticize you and I can get you to pretty much tell me everything. It's a mind game. And women are great at it, which is why the women doing this to her made her go what she's going to do. Watch what she does next to prove them wrong, right? Exactly. Because now your ego is in the way and now you got to go prove the person wrong. But the danger, where's the danger? Where's the danger? The danger is in how you prove to them that they're wrong. Some people will risk it all just to prove to somebody else that they're wrong. Some people will risk it all just to prove to the other person that they're wrong. Look at the lengths and the extent that we go when somebody says that we're wrong. Look at the lengths that we go to prove the person that we're wrong. And like I said yesterday, you are not responsible for what somebody thinks about you. I'm not. If you think it's fake, then that's on you. I'm not obligated to prove to you. Sometimes people want to know information about you, right? They want to know information about you. So they'll throw something out there. They'll come to you and say, oh, so-and-so said, or I heard that you did so-and-so. And then in that moment, it taps into your ego and you're like, That didn't happen. And then boom, you tell the person what really happened when in fact that's all they wanted to know anyway. It's a mind game. It's a mind game. And some people are really good at it. I know some people personally who are really good at it. And I didn't realize that at the time until I sat back and I started to watch the pattern of behavior. I'm noticing like, yo, you do that a lot, man. You come to me and you say, oh, they saying such and such and such and such about you. And then I'm like, because I want to prove them wrong. And I'm like, nah, that's not how it happened. It went down like this. And now he's like, oh, okay, that's how it went down. Now they got the information out of you. Be mindful. Be mindful of the extent that you go to prove somebody wrong, showing your entire hand. Showing your entire hand. Some people just want to know. And they'll throw something out there. They'll throw a little bait out there. Oh, you know so-and-so said this about you. Oh, you know this is what is being said. And then you say, no, that's not how it went down. It went down like this. And now they got the narrative from you. And now they can run with it and spin it any way that they want to. I know people personally, brothers who do this. I mean, you would think that this is something that girls invest a lot of time and energy in. But I know brothers, I know men who do this and do it a lot. Because they're trying to get more information out of you. So they weren't criticizing Zulaykha because they thought that what she was doing was beneath her. They were criticizing her because they know they would tap into her ego and she would provide them a path to see Yusuf for themselves. And that's exactly what she did. That's exactly what she did. So lesson number 30, pay attention that sometimes people criticize you just so you can show your hand. Sometimes people say things about you, criticize you, not because they believe what they're saying, but because they want to check your pulse. Absolutely, there's a blessing in being an introvert. But, you know, when you're in the public eye, sometimes you have to, as an introvert, you have to navigate the terrain of an extrovert. You know, even though you're an introvert, you know, just because you're in the public eye. So you have to, you know, mingle with people. You have to talk to people even when you don't want to. Even when you know they full of you know what. You know what I mean? You see the person coming and you know the person is full of, you know what. But, you know, you engage them because it's all in light of, you know, being, you know, having good character and, you know, being a good Muslim, you know. So they criticized her because they really wanted to see Yusuf, and they knew that her embarrassment would drive her to do just that. Criticism can trigger fear, insecurity, shame, and anger, all of which play into your ego. Criticism can trigger fear, embarrassment, insecurity, shame, and anger, all of which will play into your ego. Especially if you're someone that is easily embarrassed. If you're someone that is easily embarrassed, you will go to the end of the world to regain that security that was taken away from you, to regain that position that you believe you lost, your foot slipped off of when the criticism came towards you. But sometimes in you trying to prove that you are right, you know, you're willing to risk it all to do that. And that's the danger, because as we're going to see, Zulaykha, exploited Yusuf even more just to prove to the women that, hey, I desired him, yeah, but look at him. And look at what she did. Look at what she did to him. All right. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the very next ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ. Notice Allah says, and when Zulaykha, when she heard of their plotting. So Allah tells us clearly here that it was a makr, it was a plot, it was a scheme. That their criticism was a scheme, was a plot. All right? It wasn't real. It wasn't, you know, that they were criticizing her because they felt like her behavior was unbecoming of someone of her stature. That's not why they were criticizing her. Allah calls it a makr. The word in Arabic, mim ka ra, makrun. Laqad makaru wa makar Allah. Wallahu khairul makirin. That they plot and they plan, and Allah is the best of planners. All right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَمَّا سَمِعَتْ بِمَكْرِهِنَّ. And when the wife of the Aziz heard about their plotting and their scheming, meaning their criticism, أَرْسَلَتْ إِلَيْهِنَّ. So she sent an invitation to them. وَأَعْتَدَتْ لَهُنَّ مُتَّكَأً. And then she prepared a huge banquet. Food, there's a long table, right? She invited them over to her house. There's a long table, there's plates, there's forks, there's knives, there's fruit, grapes and apples and pomegranates. She created this whole scenery because she has to prove to them that the thing you are criticizing me for, I'm justified. I am not like out of my mind. I'm not losing my mind. You guys think I'm crazy. I'm going to prove to you that I'm not crazy. So she invites everybody over. She designs and puts together this whole banquet, right? She had a Yusuf reveal party. SubhanAllah. Aisha said she had a Yusuf reveal party. Ain't that something? SubhanAllah. Right. She did it because she had to prove to them that the thing you are criticizing me for, I am justified. وَآتَتْ كُلَّ وَاحِدَةٍ مِّنْهُنَّ سِكِّينًا. And then she gave each and every one of them a knife. Went around, gave each and every one of them a knife. She wanted to show them that she was justified in her pursuit, in her desirous pursuit of Yusuf, who was a slave. Here's the ego. Here's the ego. She did all of this to prove that I'm justified for desiring my slave. I'm justified, right? So she had Yusuf hide in a place. She told Yusuf, wait. She had Yusuf wait on the side. And then she said to Yusuf, when I tell you to come out, I want you to come out. And she had him all dressed up. We're talking about Yusuf, the man that was given half of the beauty of the world. And then she says, وَقَالَتْ تِخْرُجْ عَلَيْهِنَّ. Then she tells Yusuf, Yusuf, come out. Claps her hand. Yusuf, come out. Right? And I want you to think about, because while this may seem funny, I want you to think about Yusuf in this position. Because she's like a handler now. She still has control over him. She still has a grip on him. She still is like a handler now. As I said to you earlier, when she made the suggestion to her husband as to what should be done with Yusuf, Yusuf knew in that moment that at some point, right, he was going to have to acquiesce to her because he saw that she was the one that was in power. He saw that she was the one that was in power, and that he knew that eventually she was going to get her way because she was the one in the position of power. Here's this guy wondering why this woman is doing this to him. Why is she exploiting me? Why? Right, it's exploitation. So she tells Yusuf, Yusuf, come out. Yusuf comes out. فَلَمَّا رَأَيْنَهُ أَكْبَرْنَهُ وَقَطَّعْنَ أَيْدِيَهُنَّ وَقُلْنَ حَاشَ لِلَّهِ مَا هَذَا بَشَرًا إِنْ هَذَا إِلَّا مَلَكٌ كَرِيمٌ. And when Yusuf came out, when they saw Yusuf, they magnified him, they extolled him. Oh my God, he's gorgeous, he's beautiful. Look at him. And while they're looking at Yusuf, they're actually cutting their hands instead of cutting the fruit. That's how much of a trance they were in. That's how amazed at him. All right? That's how amazed they were. They said, Hasha lillah, God forbid. This is no human being. This is no more than a noble angel. There's no way that is a human being. No way. That is nothing more than a noble angel. They had never seen any man more handsome, more beautiful. They're looking at half of the beauty of the world in one man. You understand? They're looking at half of the beauty of the world. They're looking at what they see of the beauty of the world contained in one man. In one man. You understand? They're looking at all of the beauty that you marvel at in the world, all of that contained in one man. And it was so powerful that they begin to cut their hands. Cut their hands. Right? And they said, Hasha lillah, God forbid, this is no human being. This is nothing more than a noble angel. So, although she proved her point, she used Yusuf to prove that point. It's just like when two people are involved in a situation, right? And someone comes to you and says, getting clarification about the situation. The other person who witnessed it says, don't involve me in it. I don't want nothing to do with that. I don't want no parts of that. So the other person says to the other person who witnessed it, you're lying. That's not the truth. And then you say, because you want to prove that you're right, you say, so-and-so was there. And you're like, I told you I don't want to be involved in that. Don't involve me in that. Yeah, but you saw it too, and I want you to be a witness to this. And it's like, you're going to exploit me. You're going to pull me into this situation just to prove that you're right. You understand? You're going to pull me into this situation just to prove that you are right. And I told you I didn't want anything to do with it. I told you I didn't want any parts of it. I told you that I wish I never saw that the situation happened. But to prove your rightness, you got to pull me into it. You got to exploit me. And that's exactly what she did. She exploited Yusuf. Keep in mind, she really did love him. But she exploited him just to prove that she was right. And sometimes that's what happens when a person's ego is in the way and you have to be right. You gotta prove to yourself that you're right. You gotta prove to the other person that you're right. And you'll pull from everywhere just to prove that you're right. You arguing with your wife or you arguing with your husband, right? And the husband says to the wife, okay, you're right. All right, got it, you're right. You're like, no, because I'm going to prove my point. So you jump on the phone, you call your mother. Jump on the phone, you call your friend. Jump on the phone, you call that one. Because you got to bring all of these people into the situation because you got to prove to that person. It's just like, but I already told you, you're right. I already told you were right. And then you had to go bring all of these people and involve them in our situation just because you had to prove that you were right. Just because you had to prove that you were right. Is being right that important? That you would exploit all of these people just to prove your point? Right. So even when you're right, you're wrong. You ever heard that statement before? Even when you're right, you're still wrong. Because look at the extents that you went to prove that you were right. Even when you're right, you're wrong. So she exploited him just to prove her point. Another reoccurring theme throughout this story, which is exploitation. This is another reoccurring theme throughout this entire story, and that is exploitation. Right? So, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala goes on. Some of the scholars of tafsir, they mention this point where she went back to the women and she said, أَنْتُنَّ مِن نَظْرَةِ الْوَاحِدَةِ فعلتن هذا فكيف آلام أنا وقلنا ما نرى عليك من لوم بعد هذا الذي رأيننا excuse me. That she went to the women after she called Yusuf out. She went to the women and she says, أنتم من نظرة واحدة فعلتن ذلك. She said, you all cut your hands. You did all of this just by looking at him one time. Imagine the pain that I am experiencing. I live with him. Subhanallah al-Azim. She said, you all looked at him one time, one look, and y'all begin cutting your hands. Lost sight of the fact that you are all married. Lost sight of the fact that you have husbands at home. Lost sight of the fact that, you have pain. You cut yourselves and you didn't even realize. You lost sight of everything that was real because you were fixated on his beauty. And that was only due to one look at him. Imagine the pain that I am experiencing. I have to live with him. I live with him. Imagine the pain that I am experiencing. And then the woman says, no, she was not a believer. At this point, she was not a believer. Yusuf wasn't even a prophet yet. Yusuf wasn't even a prophet yet. No, they were polytheists. They were of the Egyptian society. And so the women said, we do not see any blame on you after what we just saw. There's no blame on you. No blame on you. So we move on to the next conversation. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the next ayah, قَالَتْ فَذَلِكُنَّ الَّذِي لُمْتُنَّنِي فِيهِ. After they saw Yusuf, she says to them, ذَلِكُنَّ الَّذِي لُمْتُنَّنِي فِيهِ. This is what you criticize me for. All of your gossiping, right? All of your gossiping, all of that. All of your gossiping around the city, and this is what you condemn me for. This is what you blame me for. Then she says out in public, and now she's having a conversation with the women at the table. She said, قَالَتْ فَذَلِكُنَّ الَّذِي لُمْتُنَّنِي فِيهِ. This is what you guys criticize me for. This is what you blame me for. Right? She said, لَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فَاسْتَعْصَمْ. I desired him. Now she has boldness. She can expose, right, the fact that she desired him, because now she's justified. I can expose it now because I'm justified now. All right? And that's what people usually do when they feel that they're sanctified, they feel that they're justified. They can now just throw it out there for everybody now. She says, I desired him against his own will, fastasam, and he sought refuge in God. I desired him against his own will, and he sought refuge with God. وَلَئِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَيُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَيَكُنَّنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. She said, but now if he doesn't do what I command him to do, I'm going to put him in prison, and he will be amongst the lowly of society. Saghirin, he will be amongst the lowly of society. Couple of lessons here we need to pay attention to. Lesson number 31. Lesson number 30. As you can see, she's persistent. She is determined to have her way with Yusuf one way or the other. Now she goes out in public and she tells all of the girls that's at the banquet, yeah, I desired him. That's right. I desired him against his own will. I desired him against his own will. Yes, I did. But he sought refuge in God. But if he doesn't do what I command him to do now, I'm going to put him in prison and he'll be from the lowly of society forever. Lesson number 31. Be persistent in obedience to Allah, just as those who choose to be disobedient to Allah are persistent in their disobedience. Look at how persistent she was in having her way with Yusuf. We take that same energy and we are persistent in being obedient to Allah with the same degree of persistence. She is persistent in her haram, and we should be just as persistent in halal and being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We take that energy, keep that same energy. Just use it to be persistent in being. Think about it. Think about how persistent she is. She is determined to have her way with Yusuf. And we should take that level of persistence and being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I'm going to segue into a conversation that happened with Imam Ahmed, since we're talking about prison, because Yusuf is on his way to prison. Yusuf is on his way to prison. She said he's either going to do what I commanded him to do, meaning have sexual relations with me, or I'm going to put him in prison, or he will be from amongst the lowly of society. And she's going to have her way. I want to segue, since we're talking about Yusuf getting ready to go into prison, I want to segue into another scholar from Islam who was unfortunately put in prison for a while for simply being steadfast on the Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. Being steadfast on the belief of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and that is none other than Imam Ahmad, Abu Abdullah, Ahmad ibn Hanbal, al-Shaybani, rahmatullahi alayh. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, was put in prison because he would not agree with the philosophy or the belief that had begun to spread in that environment in Baghdad, that the Quran was created. There was a group of individuals who believed that the Quran was created. They had some misconceptions about the actions of the human being being created, and so that the Mus'haf is written down, and so therefore everything in the Mus'haf is created, and that means that the words of Allah are created, which is very dangerous, because if you say the words of God are created, then that means that the one that uttered them are ultimately leads you to say that the one who uttered those words are created. So Imam Ahmad rahimahullah ta'ala stuck to the belief of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah and said that the Quran غير مخلوق, that the Quran is not created. That is the belief of Ahlul Sunnah. That is the Aqidah of Ahlul Sunnah, that the Quran is not created. منه بدأ وإليه يعود, that the Quran came from Allah and to Allah it will return. And it is the uncreated speech of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And as a result of that, Imam Ahmad was put in prison. He was lashed, he was beaten for his Aqidah, for his belief. We ain't talking about somebody who sit behind a computer and type what their Aqidah is and what their minhaj is and how much they love Ahlul Sunnah and how much they are Ahlul Sunnah. Yeah, you can do that from behind a computer. Let's see how that looks in real life. Let's see how that looks in real life. Oh, you vanguards of Islam. Let's see how that looks in real life. Until you have been tortured because of your belief, until you have suffered harm because of your Aqidah, don't sit here and brag about how much haqq you on and how much Ahlul Sunnah you love and how much, Salafi, and, you have never suffered any harm as a result of your Aqidah, ever. You've always lived your Aqidah and propagated your Aqidah and promoted yourself and your Aqidah from a place of privilege. And you should be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you have never had to do that. You have never had to suffer harm as a result of your Aqidah, which is why we shout so loud. Which is why we shout so loud. Wallah al-Azim, I was in Bermuda, man. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on this brother. I can't even remember his name. I was in Bermuda when I visited Bermuda for the 2 times that I visited. There's a brother there in Bermuda, him as well as his brother, who were both prisoners in Guantanamo Bay. Wallah al-Azim, I get chills every time I talk to him. Him and his brother, they're from Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, both of them, they're brothers. Muslims, Ahlul Sunnah. Ahlul Sunnah, they recite Quran beautifully, everything. Wallah al-Azim, I'm amazed. I'm amazed. This brother and his brother were prisoners in Guantanamo Bay and still managed to maintain. Wallah al-Azim, you hear his story, Mubki, Shay Mubki. After speaking with the brother, wallahi, I went back to my hotel. I'm like, literally, my mind is moving a mile a minute. I'm like, man, we have never had to experience anything like that. We're talking about Muslims who were being tortured in Guantanamo Bay. Things were done to them that you can't even imagine. La yusaddiq al-aql. The intellect would never accept things that were done to them. Alhamdulillah, the only place that would accept them is Bermuda. Bermuda accepted him and his brother. Subhanallah. And they live in Bermuda, they working, they, alhamdulillah, living their lives. But Ahlul Sunnah, people of Sunnah, you don't hear them brothers running around talking about how much haqq they're on. I could tell that they were people from Sunnah by just watching them. When I was in the masjid and I noticed him standing off to the side before we even spoke. Before we even spoke. You can feel the vibe. You can feel that, mashallah, brother seemed like he on some haqq, man. You can feel it. Before he even spoke to me. And one of the brothers tapped me and was like, that brother right there, he was in Guantanamo Bay. And I was Guantanamo, the prison. And I'm like, no way. It's like, yes. And, alhamdulillah, we had an opportunity to talk. We had an opportunity to, and I really didn't want to burden him because I felt like me asking him questions was taking him back to that place. And I was very cautious, man, very careful not to overburden him with a lot of questions. And no matter how much he said, nah, it's okay, Shadi, it's all right. You can ask. And I'm like, nah, I'm cool, man. I just, just give me a second to process this, man. You understand? But you'll never see that brother walking around with his chest poked out. I'm on a Salafi minhaj, I'm on a Salafi da'wah. And these are people who were put in prison and tortured in prison and never deviated from their belief, never deviated from the aqeedah of Ahlus Sunnah wal Jama'ah, ever. And here you got Muslim brothers and sisters who sit behind a computer talking about what minhaj they on and what aqeedah they on. You ain't never had to suffer as a result of your belief, ever. So you speak from a place of privilege, which is why you shout so loud, which is why your voice is so exaggerated. Subhanallah al-Azim, man. Anyway, Imam Ahmed rahimahullah ta'ala was put in prison because of this. All right, so we're about to start talking about prison. So if any of you have Muslim family members, relatives in prison, give them an opportunity to listen to this, because sometimes when you're in that place, you tend to think that there's no hope for you. You tend to think, especially, can you think about those who are incarcerated now, looking out into the world from behind the bars, and they're looking out into the world. It looks real bleak. There's coronavirus, the world is on lockdown, and people inside the prison are catching coronavirus or whatever this virus is. I don't know what the hell it is. Whatever it is. People are catching it. And so sometimes being behind those bars is and sometimes it's hard to relate to people. You got your over-religious, overzealous, extreme Muslim, self-righteous Muslim. And then you got those who are 1 foot in Islam, 1 foot out of Islam. And then you got those who just want to learn more so they can be strong in their deen, strong in their practice of Islam. I ain't going all the way out like this guy. This guy he's a nut. You know what I mean? Like, he's going bonkers with his religion. And those be the same ones, the moment they're released and they get back out on the streets, it's right back to doing you again. But in prison, you Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah. The moment you're released from behind those bars, it's right back out into the world doing you all over again. And then you have those who, I'm Muslim, but, I still sell cigarettes. I still gamble. I still look at pornoflick books. I still do everything everybody else do, but I'm Muslim. You got those types. And then you got those in the middle who just want to learn. They're trying to absorb as much as they can so that they can, be thabit, can be firm in their religion. Imam Ahmed rahimahullah ta'ala, he had one of his sons, Abdullah. Abdullah narrates this narration, right? Abdullah says, كنت كثيرا أسمع والدي يقول رحم الله أبا هيثم غفر الله سبحانه وتعالى لأبي هيثم فقلت يا أبي من هو أبو هيثم قال أما تعرفه قال لا قال هو أبو هيثم الحداد اللص. Abdullah, the son of Imam Ahmed, he said, I used to hear my father say all the time, may Allah have mercy on Abu Haytham. May Allah forgive Abu Haytham. I used to hear my father say this all the time. This is after prison. After prison. So this was somebody that Imam Ahmed met in prison, and he had such a profound impact on Imam Ahmed that even after he left prison, Imam Ahmed still used to remember him in dua. As Imam Ahmed used to remember Imam Shafi'i, who was one of his shuyukh, one of his sheikhs. He said, I remember Imam Shafi'i in my dua when I was in sujood for 40 years after he's died, after his death. 40 years after he was dead and gone, I still make sujood and I remember Imam Shafi'i in my dua. 40 years later. Can you imagine? That means that their interactions with one another was so genuine and so sincere. We meet somebody for the first time and we forget all about them. After meeting the third or fourth person, we don't even remember the first person. He said, I used to remember Imam Shafi'i in my dua for 40 years. 40 years. Every time I went into sujood, I would mention Imam Shafi'i. He said, Abdullah, the son of Imam Ahmed, said, I used to hear my father say all the time, may Allah have mercy on Abu Haytham. May Allah forgive Abu Haytham. So Abdullah says to his father, Ahmed, says, he said, oh my father, who is Abu Haytham? And Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah ta'ala, is now about to give his son some jewels, a story from prison. This guy that I met in prison, I want to tell you a little bit about him. So Imam Ahmed says, Abu Haytham, you don't know who Abu Haytham is? He said, Abu Haytham al-Haddad, who was a man that I met in prison. He was a thief. He said, لما مت يدي إلى عقاب وأخرجت للصياط إذا أنا بإنسان يجذب ثوبي من ورائي ويقول لي أتعرفني؟ قلت لا. قال أنا أبو حيثم العيار اللص مكتوب في ديوان الأمير المؤمنين أني ضربت 18,000 صوتا بالتفاريق والصبرت على ذلك على طاعة الشيطان لأجل الدنيا فاصبر أنت في طاعة الرحمن لأجل الدين. فقال أحمد فقوي قلبي. Subhanallah. So Abdullah says to his father, oh my father, who is Abu Haytham? Imam Ahmed said, Abu Haytham is a man that I met in prison. He was a thief. He said, when I was being lashed, right? They lashed his hands, they lashed his back, right? They would tie him to a pole, tie his hands like this, and lash his back, right? Lash his back. He said, when I stuck my hands out to be, shackled, so they could bring me out so I could be lashed. While I was sticking my hands out to be cuffed, I felt someone tug my thobe from the back. I felt someone tugging on my garment from the back. He said, I turned around and there was this man and he says to me, Ata'rifuni, do you know who I am? Do you know who I am? So Imam Ahmed said, no, I don't know who you are. He said, Ana Abu Haytham. He said, my name is Abu Haytham. I'm a thief. And it was recorded in the Diwan, in the book of the leader of the believers, that I was lashed. 18,000 sawtan. I was lashed 18,000 times. I was lashed 18,000 times. I was lashed 18,000 times. He said, and I was patient for sabartu ala dhalika. I was patient with my 18,000 lashes. Ala ta'at shaitan, in obedience to shaitan, li'ajli dunya, because I just wanted to, I wanted to get more of the world. So I kept coming in and out of prison, in and out of prison. And out of all of the times that I came in and out of prison, the total amount of times that I had been lashed in my entire life was 18,000 times. All in obedience to shaitan for the dunya. He said, but you, isbir, be patient. Anta fi ta'at ar-Rahman. You are on obedience to ar-Rahman. Li-ajli ad-deen. For the sake of the deen. Be patient. If I could be patient, going in and out of prison over the years and receive 18,000 lashes because I kept stealing in obedience to shaitan for the world, you are on obedience to ar-Rahman by remaining steadfast on your aqeedah. Be patient with the lashes that they're giving you. You are on obedience to ar-Rahman for the sake of the deen. Imam Ahmed said, فَقَوِّيَ قَلْبِي. My heart was strengthened by those words, man. SubhanAllah. Those words strengthened. فَقَوِّيَ قَلْبِي. Imam Ahmed could put his hands out, shackle me, go ahead and lash me. I can handle it. Give me all you got because I'm being patient for the sake of ar-Rahman, for the sake of my deen. You understand? This guy lashed 18,000 times. In and out of prison, in and out of prison, in and out of prison. Lashed 18,000 times in obedience to shaitan for the dunya. If he can do that, then I can do that for the deen and more. So what I'm saying, going back to the story, that she was persistent in disobeying Allah. She was persistent in sleeping with Yusuf. Take that level of persistency that she had in trying to have her way with Yusuf and exercise the same level, if not more, of persistency and being obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's the lesson here. That is the lesson here. You got it. So what Abu Haytham was telling Imam Ahmed is, if I can handle 18,000 lashes because I was stealing, I was doing wrong, you should be able to handle 18,000 lashes and you're doing the right thing. You understand? The same level of patience. He's saying basically the same level of patience that I exerted for dunya, you should exert the same level of patience, if not more, for your deen. And Imam Ahmed said, فَقَوِّيَ قَلْبِي, my heart got strengthened just by those words, man. Subhanallah al-Azim. Maybe next Ramadan, inshallah, we'll go through the story of Imam Ahmed in prison. It's, Wallah al-Azim, I cried the first time I read it. Maqdisi's book, it's in all Arabic. Maqdisi's book, subhanallah, Mihna, Imam Ahmed, one of the best books I've ever read in my life about that particular story. Imam Ahmed, subhanallah, I cried literally the first time I read that story. So, lesson number 31, be persistent in obedience to Allah with the level of persistence of those who choose to disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Lesson number 32. Lesson number 32. Beauty is only skin deep. They were entranced. They were engaged so much. They got lost in the beauty of Yusuf. They got lost in the physical beauty of Yusuf. But they overlooked the moral and spiritual beauty of Yusuf. They got lost in the physical beauty of Yusuf. They got lost. They start cutting their hands. They start to extol him. Oh my God, look at how beautiful he is. They got caught in the physical beauty of Yusuf. But they missed out on the moral and spiritual beauty of Yusuf. That was more important. They missed the lesson. The physical beauty fades, yes. Beauty is only skin deep, meaning physical beauty is superficial. It is not a guide to someone's character. Because someone is beautiful doesn't mean they have good character. Because a man wears a thobe doesn't mean he's not going to curse you out like a sailor. Doesn't mean he's not going to pulverize you with his hands. Because he wears a thobe and he has a prostration mark, he has a big beard, that is superficial. Physical beauty, it fades. A woman is not, oh, I want a sister who wears all black and wears an overgarment. MashaAllah, that looks great. But what happens when you get her home and she starts to run mental circles around you, making you think that you're crazy, gaslighting you? You as a man can't figure out why you can't corner this woman and make her own her stuff. She's running mental circles around you. Yet she wears all black. She wears a garment. She can spew, she can preach all of the, she can give you run off all of the Islamic texts. And this sheikh said this and this sheikh said that. And I was with my companions and and she got all the lingo, all the language, the lingo, the vernacular. She got it all down. But when she get in the home and she take off her hijab, her personal character kicks in. She starts to run mental circles around you. Have you thinking that you are crazy. Men, don't tell me I'm lying. Have you think that you are crazy. Yeah, but you saw her with her hijab on, her niqab on. She lifted her niqab up in the sit down and you like, mashallah. Right? You know that when you're in the sit down and you like, sis, can you lift up your niqab? And she lifts up the niqab and you're like, mashallah. Come on, man. Knock it off. Because when you get her home, you're going to be saying, a'udhu billah. MashaAllah at the sit down. A'udhu billah when you get home. You like, how in the world? Are you serious? Right. She running mental circles around you. Yeah, man, you gotta, you gotta be careful, man. Physical beauty is not a guide to moral beauty. Physical beauty is not a guide to moral beauty. Well, Instagram cut off. Let's see if we can bring them back. Happens at least once a day. No. Okay, so they were entranced. They were gone with the physical beauty of Yusuf, but they forgot about the moral beauty. They never saw the moral beauty. It was staring them right in their face. Where was the moral beauty? Where was the moral beauty? Please tell me. What did they miss? What did they miss? Where was the moral beauty that they missed? It went right over their heads. Never get so lost in the physical beauty that you forget about the moral beauty. What did they miss? Where was the moral beauty? I want to see if you guys can figure it out. What was the moral beauty that they missed? He didn't acquiesce. She said it. She said, لَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فَاسْتَعْصَمْ. I desired him against his own will, and he sought refuge in God. She spelled it out right there, and it went right over their heads because they're still entranced in the physical beauty. You understand? She said it right there. She said it right there. لَقَدْ رَاوَدْتُهُ عَنْ نَفْسِهِ فَاسْتَعْصَمْ الْإِعْتِصَامِ بِاللَّهِ جَلَ وَعَلَى. Al-i'tisam. He turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. She said it right there. I desired him against his own self, and he sought refuge in God. She spelled it out right there. And rather than them saying, wow, at the fact that he sought refuge in God in such close quarters with a beautiful, powerful woman, and allow that to, inundate them, they were still entranced by the physical beauty. His adab, they didn't see it. And some of us are the same way. We get lost in the person's physical beauty. We never even pay attention to the moral beauty. Where's the moral beauty? You want to marry the sister because she's beautiful, mashallah, sister God. What's her character like? You want to marry the brother, mashallah, because he wears a thobe. He comes to the masjid. He has a prostration mark. He has that beard. Oh, mashallah, them brothers in those beards, mashallah. Yeah, but where's that beard at when he gets on your nerve, when he makes you angry, when he screams at you, when he verbally abuses you? Where does that beauty go? Because if he has adab, if he has moral character, then you ain't never got to worry about that. You will never have to worry about that. She spelled it out in plainly and clearly. And they were so lost in the external beauty that she was trying, that they couldn't see the moral beauty. They couldn't see the moral beauty. She said, I desired him against his own self, but he sought refuge in God. Right then and there, you should have been like, pause. Right there, he did what? You desired him against his own will? In the home, locked the doors, all of that, and he still said no? That should have been the light bulb moment where you say, wow, there's something special about this guy. Nah. Nah. Because you're still looking at the physical beauty. And that's the problem with most of us. We are still looking at the physical beauty instead of the moral, spiritual beauty. He made i'tisam. He sought refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that should be great. But some of the women, you guys are like, well, what do he look like? Is he handsome? Is he, what is his character like? That's your first question. What's his character like? Character is important in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, for both men and women, the Prophet ﷺ said, "Man ja'akum man tardawna dinahu wa khuluquhu fazawwiju." If a man comes to you, this is proof that a woman does not marry herself. Because who is the Prophet ﷺ talking to in this hadith? He's talking to the wali. He's talking to the wali. The spiritual beauty is the i'tisam. I said it 5 times. 5 times. You guys are not following me, man. You're not following me. The moral spiritual beauty is his i'tisam, his reliance in Allah, his refuge in Allah. Al-i'tisam is an act of ibadah. Scholars have written books on i'tisam, written entire books on just this subject alone. Putting your trust and your reliance in Allah, in refuge, running to Allah for refuge. That's the ibadah, that's the spiritual component. Character in Islam is very important. So much so, the Prophet ﷺ, he said that if a man comes to you, meaning you as a wali, the man, a woman does not marry herself off. If a man comes to you who you are pleased with his deen and his character, Man ja'akum man tardawna dinahu wa khuluquhu fazawwiju. If a man comes to you and you are pleased with his deen, his practice of Islam, and you are pleased with his character, then marry him. Deen and character. Deen and character for us goes on the back burner. I want to see what he looked like. You have some women who want to test the waters before you get married. How do I know the sex is not going to be good? Okay, the sex is good, but sex hasn't saved anybody's marriage. I don't know anybody's marriage who has been saved by sex. What are we, 13, 14, 15 years old? What are we, young adults? The sex is good, so I'm going to stay in the marriage because the sex is great. What are we, 20 years old? I have never seen sex save anybody's marriage. Hell, sometimes love doesn't even save your marriage. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, وَيْحَدْ هَلْ تُبْنَ الْبُيُوتِ إِلَّا عَلَى حُبٍّ. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, woe be to you, is our homes, meaning relationships. Are relationships built on anything other than love? Is it just love that relationships are built upon? No, sometimes the love is not even there. We're there for other reasons. We stick around for other reasons. Love is not even a factor. We stay around because it's the moral thing to do. We stay around because we have children to raise. We're co-parenting. We stay around because I just don't want to take time out to be with nobody else. I'm going to just stay I'm going to stay with the one whom I'm with. You understand? Sometimes love is not even enough to sustain a marriage. As a matter of fact, love does not sustain a marriage. Marriage sustains love. Love does not sustain a marriage. So how much more would that be with sex? But some of you talking about, oh, well, I want to see what it's hitting for. Let me see what he working with. So you want to test the waters first before you decide you want to be married to him. That's it. That part of the deal is a gamble. All you want to know is the brother healthy. Are you healthy? You're not impotent. You're not, you're not such that physically you can't, have an erection. Okay, if you can gain an erection, then we can work on all of the other stuff. We got nothing but time. We can work on all of that. But some of y'all, I don't get it. I think sometimes people watch too much porn. People, are in a reality world. This reality TV that we're in. Come back to reality, man. Some of y'all really need to come back to reality. Some of y'all really need to come back to reality. You want to test the waters first before you get married? What part of Islam is that? Some of y'all be really figuring out what Islam are you practicing? I'm really just trying to figure that out. What Islam are you guys practicing? I'm really curious. Because this is not the Islam of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam from 1441 years ago. You want to test the waters first before you marry? What if the sex ain't good? What if the sex is good? What if it's good? Is that enough for you to say, yes, I'll marry you because the sex is good? Are you kidding me? But this is where we are. Our young people, man. Our young Muslims, man. And some of you old Muslims too. But character is important. The Prophet ﷺ said, if someone comes to you and you are pleased with his deen and his character, then marry him. On the flip side of that, the Prophet ﷺ said that a woman is usually married for 4 reasons. لِجَمَالِهَا, for her beauty. وَلِحَسَبِهَا, for her social status. وَلِمَالِهَا, and for her wealth. He said, فَاظْفَرَ بِذَاتِ الدِّينِ تَرِبَتْ يَدَكَ. Marry the woman that has deen. Marry the woman for deen. Deen doesn't mean that she wears hijab. Deen doesn't mean that she puts on a abaya. Deen doesn't mean that she wears black. Deen doesn't mean that she goes to this particular masjid or that particular masjid. That doesn't mean that she's practicing her religion. How many brothers have married sisters who wear abaya, wear hijab, and then 6 months into the marriage, she don't wear the hijab no more? Slowly but surely, the hijab comes off a little by little until 6 months into the marriage, she's on her way out the door. You're like, where you going? You don't even have hijab on anymore because she didn't wear it from the beginning. She only wore it because she knew that that is what you were attracted to. You're so freaking superficial, so predictable. Because if you were focusing on character, you would have never got caught up like that. You would have never got caught up like that. And how do you figure out character? Well, you damn sure don't figure it out after 2 or 3 sit-downs. I'll tell you that. Stop marrying people after having 2 or 3 sit-downs. You damn sure ain't going to find out about somebody's character after 2 sit-downs. 1 sit-down, you sold? 1 sit-down? You want to spend the rest of your life with this person after meeting them for the first time? Where they do that at? You guys about to make me bust a vein in my neck, man. God, you got to be kidding me, man. This cannot be the deen of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is not the religion that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam left us upon. Please tell me that this is a sick nightmare and we have not waken up from it yet. And then someone says, why not 2? You go for it. Let me know how that work out for you. You go ahead and give a man a promise that you're going to spend the rest of your life with him after meeting him 2 times. Let me know how that work out for you. And then we'll say, the sooner the better. These are all things that you guys came up with. The Prophet ﷺ never said that. The Prophet ﷺ, give me one hadith. The Prophet ﷺ never said the sooner the better. That is a phrase or a statement that was coined by someone who simply wanted to satisfy their desires, wanted instant gratification. The sooner the better. You guys are making it up as you go along, man. Beauty is only skin deep. Physical beauty is not a guide to one's moral character. Never get lost in the physical beauty that you forget about the moral and spiritual beauty. The wife of the Aziz spelled it out right there. Spelled it out right there. She said, I desired him against his own self, festasam, but he sought refuge in God. Why were they not able to see how magnificent that was in that moment? Because they were so inundated with the physical beauty. Never get lost in the physical beauty that you overlook, bypass the spiritual beauty. All right, lesson number 33. Another gem here. She said what? At the end of the ayah, she said what? She said, he's going to either, وَلَئِن لَمْ يَفْعَلْ مَا آمُرُهُ لَيُسْجَنَنَّ وَلَا يَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. She said, he is either going to do now what I commanded him to do, or I'm going to put him in prison. He will be put in prison and he will be from the lowly of our society. وَلَا يَكُونَنَّ مِنَ الصَّاغِرِينَ. She's going to put him in prison, and he's going to be deemed from the lowest of their society. He'll be a nobody. He'll be a slave forever. He'll be a servant who even certain people won't even want to buy. Where will that narrative come from? Here's your next lesson. Lesson number 33. History is written by the victors. History is written by the victors. This is a quote from Winston Churchill. History is written by the victors, meaning history is not grounded in facts. Rather, it is grounded in the winner's interpretation of events. You understand? She's going to give the narrative. Why would he go to prison? Because of whatever narrative she's going to tell. Whatever she's obviously not going to say, I told him to have sex with me and he refused, so put him in prison. Obviously, she's not going to tell that narrative. She gets to tell whatever story she wants because she is the one that's in the position of power and privilege. You understand? That's the way history works. History is told by the victors. When you are the winner, you are the one on top, you are the one in the powerful position, you are in that powerful place, you get to tell the narrative that becomes history. Hence the fact Jesus is white. Do you think if black people were in the position of power in society, do you think Jesus would still be white? Just a question. Just a question. Do you think if black people were at the top of what the hegemonic, right? They were the hegemony, the black people. Do you think the picture that your grandmother has in her living room of Jesus would be white? Do you think the picture of Jesus when you walk into your church would be white? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Jesus would be black with an afro. You understand? History is told or written by the victors. History is written by the victors. So my question to myself as well as to you all, who's going to write the story of Islam in America? Who's going to write this history right here? Because the way that it seems like is that African American Muslims, their narrative is being pushed to the side, as it always is, marginalized. And now we have people from, other cultures that are step up to the front, that are now teaching black history, that are now teaching, black Sahaba and black companions of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, that are now speaking out against, injustice, obviously from a place of privilege, obviously from behind a computer. They're not going to go to Ferguson. They're not going to go to, Georgia. They're not going to go stand in the crowds and, they're not going to do that. But we will get behind a computer and we'll advocate social justice. You understand? You understand? Are you guys following me? So it seems like Islam in America, that narrative is being rewritten. Type in, right? Go to Google, type in Islam in America and look at the color of the faces that come up. Because we're African American Muslims. What are we doing? We over here arguing over who got the best bean pies and who brought the Salafi dawah to the community first and who's the most knowledgeable. Here we go with the cooning, you know what I mean? We always cooning. Always. Who's better than who's smarter than who's more knowledgeable than who has more than whose masjid has been around first. We put so much emphasis on that. So what? We could get a lot more done if nobody cared about who got the accolades. Could you think about how much work we could get done if we didn't care who got the credit? We care more about who gets the credit. Oh, this masjid has been here first, or I've been here first, or we were established first. You know what I mean? Like, come on, man. So what? Who cares? Who cares? But our narrative is not going to be told simply because we are, it's what it is. So the people who prevail, the victors, they can force their narrative on everyone. But we will see how Yusuf positions himself to change that narrative because he goes to prison. Yusuf goes to prison. She said that he's either going to do what I tell him to do or he's going to be put in prison and he'll be from amongst the lowly of our society. Why? Because she's in control of the narrative. She's the victor in this situation. She comes out on top. But Yusuf, alayhi salam, he learns a valuable lesson in prison by which he will change that narrative. He will change that narrative. So I want you guys to think closely about the lessons that, that we learned here today, man. It's just so much, man. So much here. And, our communities are hurting in such a big way, man. You got the older Muslims who've been around for a while who look at the younger Muslims and, we're not going to open the door and let them in because they're going to come here and mess up what we got going on. And it's just like, man, what do you have going on? You 50, 60, 70 years old. You've been running the same masjid. You've been running the same classes. You've been teaching and preaching to the same people for the past 20 years. What do you have going on that you're so afraid of losing? I'm just really curious with some of our older Muslims. What are you afraid of losing? You won't let the younger generation, the younger people come in and, take their rightful place. You're going to hold on to the microphone and the minbar. You got the minbar in one hand, the microphone in one hand, while we shrouding you to bury you behind. Because you can't let it go. Because they not ready. You keep saying they not ready, they not ready, they not ready, they not ready. Some of us, we pushing 50. When are we going to be ready? Please tell me. Because we're still, we still don't want to relinquish that position, man, to our own detriment. Why are we having all these Quran classes? Why are not our young people? Why the person calling the adhan? This is just a question. Why is the person calling the adhan in the masjid 60, 70 years old? And the adhan sounds horrible. I mean, with all due respect, the adhan sounds horrible. You can barely catch your breath. You're trying to call the adhan. You got all these young people sitting in the masjid. Why the 60, 70-year-old brother, who, can barely get the adhan out, got to go up to the microphone? Wallah al-Azim, I've been in certain masjids where two brothers, both of them look like they in their 60s, about to fight each other over who going to call the adhan. Wallah al-Azim, I ain't going to say the name of the masjid, but I have been in masajid where I have had to intervene between two 60-year-old men who about to fight each other over who going to call the adhan. And it's like, both of y'all sound horrible. Put the damn microphone down and let one of the youth call the adhan. Somebody teach one of the youth how to beautify his voice to call the adhan. Why in the African-American masajid do all of the adhans have to be called by 60-year-old men who can barely get the words out properly? Not to mention, not to mention that, you're not even pronouncing the words correctly. And I'm just stating facts. I'm not blaming anyone. Obviously, a 60-year-old brother calling the adhan, alhamdulillah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward him. But the point that I'm making is that why bypass all of these young people on the musalla? Because you're going to go to the grave calling the adhan, rather than teaching the youth how to do it. And save your voice, man. Save yourself. Work smarter, not harder. You got all these young people in the masjid for, and you're not teaching them how to call the adhan. This is our dilemma. And I can go on and on and on and on and on. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us. Wallah al-Azim, we have so much work to do. Man. I'm just laying it out on the table. Wallahu a'lam, maybe our children, my children, maybe they'll be the ones, the game changers. But somebody got to lay it out there. Somebody got to say it. You know what I mean? Somebody got to state it and just let it sit there. And then we have to sit in that discomfort, man. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallama tasliman kathira. Wa akhiru da'wana anil hamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.